Chris Norman finally talks about Suzi Quattro at 75. Christopher Ward Norman was born on October 1, 1963, the 25th of May, 1950, in Redcar, North Yorkshire, England, to a family that was already very musical. His dad was a singer and performer for a living, and from a young age, music wasn't just a hobby, it was a normal part of existence. When the family moved to Bradford, young Chris took in the lively music scene of post-war Britain, where rock and roll, skiffle, and early pop were changing how young people saw themselves. When Norman was a teenager, he learned how to play guitar and started playing with friends from school. This helped him improve his technical talents and establish the unique singing style that would later define his career. Even when he was young, his voice was gruff, emotive, and obviously human. This set him apart from other singers of the period who were more polished or dramatic. In the middle of the 1960s, Norman and his pals Alan Silson, Terry Utley, and Ron Kelly started a band. Later, Pete Spencer took their place. The band played under many identities for years and had a hard time getting noticed. Then they became Smokie, which changed their life forever. In the middle of the 1970s, they got their big break when they started working with famous songwriting and production pair Nicky Chin and Mike Chapman. With Norman's voice at the lead, Smokie put forth a succession of international singles that perfectly reflected the mood of the time. Living Next Door to Alice, If You Think You Know How to Love Me, Don't Play Your Rock and Roll to Me, I'll Meet You at Midnight, and Lay Back in the Arms of Someone became songs that people all around the world sang along to. Chris Norman's singing was a big part of Smokie's success. His delivery was a good mix of weakness and strength, which made the band's songs more emotional and relatable. Smokie became quite popular in the UK, Australia, and continental Europe. He sold tens of millions of records over the world and gained millions of admirers. During this time, Norman became not simply a singer, but also a charismatic frontman whose honesty really connected with fans. After years of touring, recording, and pressure from the music business, the members of Smokie started to feel creatively limited by the early 1980s. Chris Norman, in particular, wanted the freedom to be creative and the chance to find a more personal musical style. In 1986, he had to make the hard choice to leave the band and start a solo career, a risky decision that ended up changing everything. Norman's decision to work alone right away was a success. His duet with Suzi Quattro in 1986, Stumbling In, became a huge smash around the world. It topped charts and introduced him to a new generation of fans. The song showed a softer, more personal aspect of his voice, which showed how well he could express delicacy and emotional nuance. After this triumph, Chris Norman put out a string of solo albums that solidified his image as an emotionally mature artist. In Germany, Scandinavia, and Eastern Europe, where Norman became almost a legend. Songs like Midnight Lady, Some Hearts Are Diamonds, and No Arms Can Ever Hold You became very famous. Norman did well after quitting a successful band, because he stayed true to his musical impulses. Unlike many other musicians who have trouble after leaving a band, his solo work mixed pop, soft rock, and country music in a way that was nuanced. It often dealt with love, longing, reflection, and strength. His songs got more introspective, and his performances became more sincere, showing both personal growth and emotional maturity. Chris Norman is different from other people since he has lived for so long. He has continued to tour a lot, put out new albums, and perform to sold-out crowds all across Europe and beyond, even though it has been decades since his first big break. His live shows are still compelling, thanks to the same raw vocal emotion that first drew people in the 1970s. Norman has never only depended on nostalgia. He respects his past with Smokie, but he also keeps making new songs. This shows that he has a rare balance between honoring the past and embracing artistic progress. His voice, which has been through a lot of things over the years, but is still full of character, has a realness that few artists can keep up with for so long. In 1994, Chris Norman won one of the most prestigious awards of his career, KM Europe's International Video Star of the Year. This showed that he was still popular around the world. The prize honored Norman's strong, instantly recognizable voice, and his ability to connect with people visually and emotionally all around the world. At a period when music television was a big part in making stars, it was a time when his solo career was strong enough to stand on its own, showing that his art had both staying power and a timeless appeal across cultures. In 2004, 10 years later, Norman got people's notice again by being on the comeback show on the German TV network Pro Sieben. The show that brought famous artists back together and celebrated them was the perfect place for Norman to remind viewers why his music had never really gone away. He sang the famous ballad, Stumbling In, with pop star Suzi Quattro, which was one of the most talked about parts of the show. The show mixed old memories with new vitality, making longtime fans happy and introducing a new generation to the beauty of his voice. The last episode was the most emotional part of the series. Norman was joined on stage by Smokie for the last song. It was a memorable reunion that seemed more like a sincere celebration of a shared musical journey than a TV show. In 2019, Norman became even more famous around the world when he headlined the prestigious White Nights Music Festival in St. Petersburg. The event itself had a lot of meaning because it was set up to honor Ola Pugachev, one of Russia's most famous cultural figures, who had an amazing 50-year career. Being invited to headline such an important event says a lot about how much respect Norman has in Europe and beyond. He shared the stage with well-known performers including Level 42, Bonnie Tyler, and Svetlana Loba. His performance was a mix of years of experience and unending passion. Under the bright white night sky, Norman once again showed that a great musical legacy isn't about trends. It's about being able to move people year after year, generation after generation. Chris Norman's personal life has always been very different from his famous and troubled music career. His personal life has been distinguished by stability, loyalty, and devotion to family. Norman married Linda in 1970, when his career with Smokie was just starting to take off. Their marriage happened before they became famous throughout the world, before they went on sold-out tours, had #1 records, and had to deal with the constant stress of the music industry. This timing was important since it meant that their connection was based on their common youth, trust, and a deep knowledge of each other, not on fame or public attention. Over the years, Norman has talked about how important that early dedication was, either directly or through the decisions he made in his life. His marriage to Linda has lasted for more than 50 years, even though the profession is known for broken marriages, short relationships, and too much of everything. While Norman dealt with the responsibilities of recording, traveling, and staying relevant through changing musical eras, Linda has always been there for him, providing emotional support and stability. People who know them well have said that their relationship is very private, based on respect rather than show, and kept going by a common desire to keep their family life out of the spotlight of fame. Chris and Linda Norman raised 5 kids together, and Norman has always seen being a parent as a big part of who he is, not just a side job that helps him be a successful artist. He made an effort to stay active in his kids' life, even though he was away from home for long periods of time for tours and recording sessions. He saw family time as an important anchor. Being a father changed how he saw things, helping him keep things in balance and in perspective when work stress could have easily taken over. Many people say that his solid familial background helped him become known as a down-to-earth and kind performer. Even while he was at the height of his fame, the Norman family decided to move to the Isle of Man in 1986 because they wanted a quieter and more controlled place to live and work. This move was not just about where it was, but also about what it meant. The Isle of Man gave Norman privacy, peace, and escape from the strong spotlight of mainland celebrity culture. This let him focus on music without giving up his family life. He wanted a normal life, so the close-knit neighborhood and slower pace were perfect for him. It also gave his kids the chance to grow up without being in the spotlight all the time. The Isle of Man has been Norman's permanent home and creative sanctuary since he moved there. He proceeded to write, record, and tour across the world from this base, showing that you didn't have to live in the middle of the entertainment industry to be successful as an artist. The island became a place for Norman to recharge and contemplate, where he could go away from the pressures of fame and reconnect with the ideals that had guided him since he was a child: family, dedication, and being real. Chris Norman, the unmistakable voice behind Smokie and one of the most famous figures in British rock, is now 75 years old and naturally reflects on his life. He has a long view of the music industry and the individuals who shaped it because he has had decades of #1 singles, non-stop traveling, artistic successes, and personal problems. One of those names sticks out with a lot of clarity and respect: Suzi Quattro. Norman has talked frankly and at length about their relationship, the time they spent together, and how much he has always admired her. For the first time in a long time, Norman remembers the music environment in the early 1970s as being raw, competitive, and full of potential. He believes those were exciting times. Everything was fresh, and no one knew how far things could go in that area. Suzi Quattro became a force that couldn't be ignored. Suzi transformed the image when she came around. Norman says she wasn't attempting to blend in with anything that was already there. She was really her own person. Norman says that Quattro's effect was much bigger than just her chart accomplishment. She violated and stated conventions in an industry that was mostly male by becoming a female rock artist who played bass and led a hard-edged band. People today sometimes forget how bold that was. He argues that wasn't how things were done back then. Suzi didn't ask for permission. She just went ahead and did it. He says that a lot of male musicians, including himself, had to change the way they thought. You couldn't ignore her. She possessed the right attitude, skills, and energy to back it all up. During tours, TV shows, and industry gatherings, they ran into each other a lot, and Norman remembers those times with fondness. He claims she was always honest with everyone. No games, no lies.